Welcome to the Morning Drive Power Hour. I'm Dr. Andrew Skang. He, Dr. Michael Ward, Esquire. On today's show, we'll be talking about the NCAA tournament. Now set, records are set. We'll be doing our annual battle of our different methodologies. We'll talk a little bit about that today. We'll talk some more about the Kansas City Royals and their spring training, which is up again. Uh, start today with the NFL offseason, the Kansas City Chiefs. Not a whole lot of news this last week. We had a few players signed this week. Probably, maybe most notably, Kareem Hunt is going to be staying with the team. Was that interest to you, Mike, or is that just what you expected? And this is just another transition week from the
Well,
NFL.
it's rounding out the running back room. I guess Hunt had a good season last year. They also brought Juju Smith-Schuster back. I think that's new this week. So they are looking for, I guess, just to fill out the roster. At this point, it seems like some of those players, if they have young free agents, they might beat out somebody like Hunt or Juju because I think the Chiefs need every dollar they can spend. If they want to have a free agent, they're going to, there are a couple maybe splashy free agents or people that might get cut later. They need to stay under the salary cap, and it's going to be tough. Especially with new contracts given to Bolton and Trey Smith, and even with the restructuring of Mahomes and Chris Jones, gave them a lot more money, but they're everything's going to be tight still. So I think they might some of these like lower to mid-priced veterans I could see maybe being on the chopping block coming when it comes down to final roster cuts, just save money. Uh,
Mm.
and maybe the idea maybe there's not a whole lot of difference between but I think Juju, maybe Juju would also benefit from another off season in Kansas City. You know, he
Sure.
he he maybe lost some of his reps last year to DeAndre Hopkins when Hopkins came. So maybe he could be a bigger part of the offense like he was a couple of years ago for the Chiefs. But it's really still it's sort of looking like it's got to be the Patrick Mahomes show, and the Chiefs don't have huge splashy names on the offense on any position really other than Mahomes. You guys the go. I guess the biggest name. Joe Tooney might have been the biggest name at least this point because of Kelsey's the biggest name, but probably in terms of his level of play, Tooney was maybe up there with Humphreys high up there too. But this is another year older for Kelsey. It's it's looking. I don't know. I don't want to say it's looking bleak, but it's basically you think okay we have Mahomes, but the way they've been coaching Mahomes lately with the Matt Nagy situation, I think it's
Um,
you wonder how good the offense is going to be with I guess Xavier Worthy looked really good last year at the end. Rasheed Rice if
yeah,
he comes back from his injury will but you know Rice at least
there's
is going
still
to
the looming suspension that he'll
mention. Yeah.
certainly have, but
It
not
seems like the
so.
Xavier Worthy stuff has blown over because that seems like it was a domestic issue that maybe was caused by his like you know now estranged fiance that led to something. So it seems like maybe that was the thing he got charged with was not maybe a legitimate uh, charge, and then it's been dropped already. So it's tough to drop stuff.
Dropped seemingly almost immediately.
Yeah,
It's like same day, I think, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah. It was really quick. It was really quick, which either means that he's got a really, really good lawyer, or because at least where I am, the prosecution doesn't like to drop charges at all until it absolutely positively has to. So,
Right.
but I don't know what everything's probably different local jurisdictions,
Oh,
but
and it was in Texas too, right? So it's like you would think that they'd have favorable sway, the Chiefs in Texas, right? Like they're not going to have to make a phone call and make it go away. Uh,
Well, it's
like
football.
they
Football
might
is
be able
big in
to.
Texas. You don't want to get on a football play, but I also think of Texas as being very punitive and very retributional, and they want prosecute probably favors prosecutors, favors that sort of retribution and vengeance and bloodlust that they execute people the higher rate I think than any other state. It's very right wing in terms of its justice system. I would, you know, heavily punitive, and
Yeah,
at least it's got that reputation. Maybe not as much as the Deep South, but it's still, you don't think, oh, this is a hippie liberal, uh, hippie liberal prosecution. That's
yeah,
getting falling for these DEI initiatives, Black Lives Matter type of things, and it's not one of those things that you see the right wing people railing against. I don't at least not from here. I think of Texas as pretty conservative in terms of its justice system, but so it must have been pretty uh, you know a pretty flimsy the charge originally.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that was about as fast as you ever hear a story about a charge being dropped.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I don't think it would have been, a Kansas City phone call should not have been able to help, that scenario, right? Like this is you know, it's not going to be locally influenceable.
Yeah, probably not unless it's like a cowboy or something, maybe. Yeah, I don't. I think it wasn't in Dallas. It seems like they're all.
So I'm not sure though. Yeah, I just know it was in Texas, but
Yeah, but that it seems like that's going to turn out to be a nothing situation pretty much. So that's good. So it's not like the Chiefs are going to be out their top two receivers for much of the year. It seems like maybe it's just going to be Rice, who's still
yeah,
recovering from his injury. But maybe if it's the beginning of the season, the suspension, it might also be the time when Rice's injury was still a little bit, concerning to him, and maybe he would not have been 100% anyway at the beginning of the
yeah,
season. So maybe that's in some ways a blessing that he won't miss games that maybe he would be at his healthiest for.
yeah.
But
If they allow that, unless they don't want to announce what the suspension will be until after he's proven himself to be healthy, which
yeah, I guess
in theory could, but who knows?
yeah.
It is what it is. It is
Uh,
odd that they have not made any indication about what the suspension will be or when it will start. Or is it, are you
yeah,
surprised they haven't?
I think they're still waiting on. I guess they're waiting on civil lawsuits to look like they're amounting to something or something. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure why. They are it takes a while, but it seems like they don't drag their feet as much on other issues.
Yeah,
But
realistically, I don't. I mean, from the league's perspective, I don't think it should matter. Right? It's like, it's a perception thing. So the
yeah, it's a
league
conduct issue.
feels that it's like, it's been wronged by this amount, and the reason that it's this amount, will equate to some number of games, and by how the league's name has been tarnished by the incident. So, I mean, waiting longer doesn't seem to like do anything except make people forget that it happened as much, I think, too. So it's then they shouldn't be able to claim that it was super damaging to the NFL's image that he is a representative of the NFL, created this problem. So
Mhm.
it seems a bit odd that it's dragged out long enough that them to decide what the punishment would be. Well, it will be almost stuff. You can see them punting it last year just by saying, okay, well, he's injured to the point, and
Yeah,
having a suspension be concurrent with an injury. So it's no one learns anything.
yeah. So, um, is your microphone is sounding a little bit weird to me.
Oh, is it? Is it all the time, or is it cutting out, or what?
Kind of cutting in. It sounds like it's a little underwater at times. I don't
Hmm.
know if it's the I don't know if
I can
mine is.
change it. Well, it's apparently on the webcam. There, I just switched to the laptop. How's that? Is that
I think
better?
I don't know. Just keep talking, I guess.
So I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know what to say now. So
I
is
think it's
there?
I
There
think it seems a little better now.
seems to be a difference now because it actually is like the input change from one
Yeah,
program
it seems it's
to the laptop. So I think I usually have it set on this, but last time I had the microphone stand,
yeah.
so it went back to the old one.
I think it sounds a little better now. It just sounded like it kind of went in and out. It was a little garbled at times, uh,
Yeah,
or quiet at times, but I know I move around a lot and sometimes I'm louder and softer. But this is stuff that we guess we can cut out of the show if you want. But
whatever. Yeah.
no one's listening this far anyway. They're all
If they're listening, they get the whole experience that
they
way.
get they get a yeah they get the uncut version of all of our. We should have the polished studio versions and also the rough mixes and un
Yeah,
the
we could
outtake.
do that. We could do that.
Yeah, for all of our diehard fans out there that
Yes.
want the real warning track power hour, not the polished hoity-toity versions of
Overly processed version. Yeah.
yeah sanitized and safe. We want the dangerous and
You never know where it's going to go.
untouched original versions. You never know what no topic is taboo here at the Power Hour.
Yeah.
I guess many topics like I know are because we only mainly talk about sports and we occasionally will venture into
Yeah.
pop culture and sometimes world events, but that's about it.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess there wasn't really a whole lot of Chiefs news this week, but there was a little bit of other NFL news. What did you think of the Bengals signing of the T. Higgins and Jamar Chase for extended contracts?
It seems like it's both a good idea and a bad idea for them to do that because it signals I think to the Cincinnati area at least that they're not the same old Bengals where they're too cheap to sign their players and just are content to be under the salary cap.
Yeah.
But it also hamstrings them because they paid I think Chase 40.3 or something million per year and Higgins about 30 million a year
Mm.
and Burrow's getting about 50 million a year, so that's 120 million a year on the what is the salary cap uh in total? It's 200 and
275, something like that.
so it's like
Well,
almost yeah,
it's approaching half of their salary cap right
salary half of the salary cap, yeah.
among three guys. Yeah. So 275, I think that's what it was, wasn't it?
Uh yes. 279.2.
279. Okay.
That's what at least that's what I saw somewhere just now. Over the cap in that salary cap tracker, yeah. 279.2 million. And right now, the the Bengals have slightly more, slightly less cap space than the Chiefs. The only team
Yeah.
with the cap right now is actually the Buccaneers, but Falcons, the Bills, the Browns, Ravens are down at the bottom right now. The Chiefs are kind of in the middle portion of the salary uh, cap, almost right in the middle. It looks like
I think
going.
the Bengals will be one of the more skewed towards offense teams than
Yeah,
cap wise.
by definition, I think they have to be. Their three,
Yeah.
I'm sure the three highest paid players now are all offense, and I think the problem was last year the Bengals were maybe too skewed towards offense. They didn't have enough defense, and they had to play shootouts a lot. And sometimes you lose a shootout,
Yeah,
and they didn't even make the playoffs last year, despite Burrow having historic season for quarterbacks. Really, I think he led the league in touchdown passes and passing yards, maybe even. And
yeah,
so this is something that again, and you also have to factor in. I think that Higgins has been injured some, Burrow's been injured some. I think Chase has been pretty durable. He may have been
yeah,
out or two here or there, but
yeah.
it's a lot of eggs in very few baskets.
Yeah, now even, more money being piled into those baskets, in those few baskets. So
Yeah.
it's not like they don't have as much room to add other players on offense. So it's like they're keeping the same offense but paying it more, and then still having to make do with what they have left for all the
Yeah,
other positions. So it
and their
seems
defensive
like it's worse in some ways.
yeah, they have a new defensive scheme they're going to have, a new defensive coordinator at least. Lou Anarumo now is the defensive coordinator for the Colts, moving, not very far from Cincinnati to Indianapolis. So that's a pretty uh,
Yeah.
it's maybe 200 miles, you think, from Indianapolis to Cincinnati? What's your estimate from?
Uh, I I really don't know. So I'll say it's under 200 miles if you're
Well under
no
200
further.
miles. It's only 112 miles.
Okay.
I was thinking it might be a little farther than that, but no, it's 112 miles.
That's close.
And
Yeah.
in Interstate 74. At least that's what Google Maps is giving me from the center of in the heart of Indianapolis to the heart of Cincinnati, 112 miles. Yeah, that's less than half the distance between Kansas City and St. Louis. And
No.
I w and what do you think besides the teams that are in the same city, what do you think the
Hmm.
shortest distance between NFL teams is?
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, because like even like Milwaukee to or Green Bay to Chicago would be a lot further than that.
Mhm.
But that's fairly close. Is it not? Is it not Indy to?
I would guess it's Baltimore to DC.
Oh, oh, sure. But
That's
that's
my
basically
guess.
the same city, though, isn't it?
You want to call BW? You think there's different? You want to consider those the same? Then maybe it's Philadelphia to Baltimore,
They have a public transit system that like you can go from DC into Baltimore.
or New York to Philadelphia would be
Yeah,
close.
those are pretty close
But
together.
it actually might be Cincinnati to Indianapolis though. Looking at the New York to Philadelphia might be. So Baltimore to Washington is 30 38.4 miles on the fastest route. Uh,
Yeah.
so if
But
we
yeah, I
want,
mean you can take a train from DC into Baltimore,
yeah,
right?
yeah, New York to Philadelphia is about 94 miles. So New York to Philadelphia is slightly closer also then. Pittsburgh to Cleveland's a pretty close drive too, but a little bit farther than 112 miles, I think. But yeah, there's a lot
Yeah, then
there's
once you get to the west, there's nothing anywhere close to each other, I don't think.
it used to be San Francisco, Oakland,
Yeah.
134 miles between Pittsburgh and Cleveland. So yeah, there are
Well,
a
it's
couple.
like LA to Las Vegas, isn't
Yeah, when San Diego and Los Angeles were together, that was fairly
yeah,
close.
that'd be pretty close.
Yeah, Los Angeles to Las Vegas is a little bit like Kansas City to St. Louis, at least, I would say.
Yeah. It's drivable, but it's not like an
Yeah,
hour away. It's yeah.
yeah. Well, that was a nice off-topic little journey that we took there through the geography of the NFL. But yeah, I don't have anything else to add about Cincinnati's football team. We'll see if the gamble pays off. Maybe if you're investing enough in offense, you don't need a great defense. But it seems like you need at least some defense. And I think Trey Hendrickson didn't he leave Cincinnati, or did where did he sign? He
Um,
was looking for someplace to go. Maybe he did sign. He does. Maybe he's.
I don't remember.
It says the Bengals are re-engaged on Trey Hendrickson negotiations. So they're
It was
working on.
the Miles Garrett was the weird one, right? For
Yeah,
the because he like
he requested a
asked
trade and then got a
to
big deal.
talk to the GM, and the GM said no, I don't want to talk to him, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then they worked it out and signed a new deal anyway. I think, right? So
hmm Yeah. So Hendrickson's still on the Bengals, but he is renegotiate. I guess they're. I see that they're maybe getting close to getting a deal done, at least in the last day or so. But I'm not sure if that will happen or not. Because there's a lot of money that needs. He's gonna get paid a lot of money too. So he's their biggest defensive player, and so that's it's tough when you spend all the money. It's like Chris Jones when you spend a lot of money on the quarterback. It's tough to keep high paid defensive linemen.
yeah, yeah,
Well, so we have a lot to look forward to with the NFL. We just still have some free agents that are left to sign, like Stephon Diggs and Aaron Rodgers. We don't know where he's going to go, whether it's Minnesota or Pittsburgh or so we
yeah.
have a few questions outstanding, but for the most part, it's been fairly quiet in the NFL. It's also fairly quiet right now. It's the calm before the storm of Major League Baseball. The Royals are still doing well in spring training. I believe they're 16-9 in the Cactus League. So
That's right.
so that would be a great season if they could keep that going in the regular season. Maybe the biggest story recently is that the Royals have kind of divided now into major and minor league camps. A lot of maybe the younger players have been relegated to the minor league camp, including number one prospect Jac Caglione. Caglione. Is it Caglione or Caglione?
Caglianone, I think is what they've been saying.
Caglione, not Caglianone.
Caglianone. That's what we thought we wanted it to be, right?
Caglione. Yes, Caglione.
Yes.
He, with the prodigious power of his bat, but he is still going to not start in the major league system this year. He's going to probably start in Double A or someplace like that. Are you disappointed Caglione didn't make it, or is this just something that it was bound to happen anyway? So it's not really newsworthy.
It was bound to happen. I think it was, he's playing a position right now, at least at first base, where he's sort of blocked by Sal and
Vinny,
Pasquantino. So, if he was going to be like work his way in there, it would have taken an injury, I think, to one of those two players to really have consideration there.
yeah,
But now that gives him some time to like have him work on an outfield, like corner outfield position too, defensively, to see if he can also play there, but give him some more flexibility, which is something the Royals tend to look for, position flexibility. So, because they've talked about him playing, in the corner, so one of the corner outfield spots, which would give him a faster route, I think, to the majors. But I think he'll still probably make it up to the majors at the end of the season, I would guess, unless earlier if he's playing great and or there are injuries that the Royals are dealing with at the major league level. But yeah, it's still impressive though, right? I mean, he managed to hit, I think, over 500 for the spring season, which is not what you expect from a young guy facing major league pitchers for the first time.
no, you never. It's always hard to say what pitchers he faced, whether they were camp arms or actual major league players or not. But yeah, he still did very very well. It seems like so
Yeah.
provides a lot of optimism, I think, for the Royals that they have a big power bat guy that could be working his way through the minor league system and up to the major league club by the end of the year to give especially when hitting seems like last year in the playoffs hitting was not very good, especially because Pasquantino was injured. He had this came back, but he had a broken thumb, so that's probably really affected his swing. And Witt wasn't very hot in the playoffs. So when he cooled off, the team didn't have a lot of
Right.
batting prowess in its lineup. So adding another hitter at least lengthens that and make so if they do make the playoffs. So right now I think they're the over under in Las Vegas is 82 and a half wins, which would if they got 82 or 83, they probably would be on the outside looking into the playoffs, but they would be at least close within the last couple of weeks of the season. Uh,
Yeah.
I think they won, what did they win, 87 last year?
Sounds right.
And they would probably need about that many again to make the playoffs. Next week is our big preview week of Major League Baseball with our over unders on certain teams that we're going to make bets on. So we don't have to reveal our bets right now, but are
Yeah.
you leaning one way or another for the over under on the Royals? We're both going to bet on the Royals over under one way or another.
I think I tend to like with yeah, last year we went I think I went with the both went with the unders because the over under was higher than what we expected to be.
Yeah,
This year it's a little under what last season's total was. It was 86 wins, what they had last year.
86 or 86 and 76. Okay.
Yeah. I think there you go, 82 and a half. I'll probably end up just saying that I'm going to take the under just so and then hope for the Royals to win more games and then I'll lose my bet, but I'll be happy that the Royals have won more games than expected though too at the same
Okay.
time. So
I'm probably leaning over just because I think the Royals will be about as good as they were last year. I don't think
yeah.
they've lost that much because they did lose Brady Singer, but they have quite a bit of other pitching depth. And I think, the 1 year older Bobby Witt, 1 year older Pasquantino, maybe healthier, you
Yeah.
pitching staff that maybe was still very solid, maybe a better bullpen now than they had last year coming in,
Seems like the bullpen has
and
improved.
and a deeper rotation, I think, than they had even last year. So we'll see what happens. I think the lineup still is a little bit iffy. They did bring in Jonathan India, who I think isn't a player that, gives a little bit of pop, but he also plays a position that is going to push somebody else out of the lineup a lot of days, like
Mm,
Messi or somebody like or Garcia, or he's one of their or one of their outfielders as well. So it's hard to say they
yeah.
both have too many and too few hitters, I think, at the same time. They don't have a lot of guys that really have to be in the lineup.
Yeah.
Like they've got a lot of like borderline solid players, but not, they're it's not a murderer's row in the lineup.
But they have like competent major league players, but they're not nobody there's only one real star, I think, on the team at this point, right? Is
Yeah, it's weird. And you could say
that's
maybe
what
Sal, but
maybe
he's on the downward slope at this point in his
maybe on the
career.
tail end, yeah.
But he's
And
a
maybe Reagan's
pitching
on
staff
the
for
pitching
Higgins, I
staff,
think.
yeah, is still on the way up. And
And
Lugo's probably, at his peak or maybe just beyond it even just because
mhm.
of his age, but maybe not because of the number of
Yeah, he doesn't have a lot
innings
of
he's
things
thrown.
on him. He doesn't. He's not his arm isn't worn out because he's been a reliever a lot, and he hasn't been a starter that's gone deep. So, but you also worry about the wear and tear on his arm, whether
Yeah,
he's to that level. But he's played last year. He went through the whole season without too many
right.
problems. So, yeah, I think Reagan's is one of the top 10 maybe pitchers in baseball at this point.
At least in the AL, and
And
yeah,
Lugo, I think he's
minimally, yeah.
certainly probably top 10 AL, maybe one of the top 10 to 15 AL pitchers. So that's two really good
Yeah,
options. And you think, okay, once the playoffs come around, you like having good high level starters and a solid bullpen. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the over. I'm going with the over. Just because I'm talking myself into it. I'm going to talk myself into the Royals challenging for the division
yeah.
and getting into the playoffs.
But it does help though too that I think like we've talked the last several years though that the rest of the division isn't like head and shoulders above anyone. There's nobody that's in an all outstanding like type of team
Yeah.
that's going to run away with the division. So
No,
I don't think anybody's really expected to be much around 90-ish wins would be a pretty good season from the Central, but you don't know which team it is that's going to be that one.
Yeah,
Probably
basically
not
it's
the White Sox,
my point on
but
the White Sox. Yeah,
one of the other four teams will probably win about 90 games, and it could be any of them, really, right? So
yeah. The Twins weren't so good last year, but maybe we're bouncing back. The Tigers made the playoffs last year, as did the Guardians. I still want to call them the Indians, but the
yeah.
Guardians, won the division, and
Mhm.
they're probably the favorite. I think actually Minnesota might be the favorite for some reason, but I would say the Guardians are probably the favorite, or my favorite to win. But even though the
Yeah, and
Royals,
they're fairly
yeah,
young too, so it could be anything.
yeah, yeah. So we have that baseball stuff to look forward to next year, next week. I mean, um, we did have the actual opening of the season in Japan, where the Dodgers defeated the Cubs in the first game in the Tokyo series. So that technically opened the season. So we're a little bit late starting our baseball preview, but we're also early because games are
Yeah,
the regulars, of the non-Japanese games, they're not going to start for another, week almost, or longer than a week. So we
yeah,
have
almost 2 weeks before
almost 2 weeks because late, March 30th or something like that is like the first
20,
game.
27th, maybe.
So it's a little bit in March, a little bit more
A
in
little
March.
bit early. Yeah. It'd be the Thursday. Well, I guess it would be like next Thursday.
Next Thursday. Well, it'll be when our
Yeah.
next Morning Trek Power Hour airs next.
Yes, will be the season opener for
So
most teams.
for most teams, we'll have it ready for our legions of fans. Then we don't want to we want them to be want them to anticipate the opening, and we don't want to feed them too early, too soon. We want to make sure the timing is just right. Uh,
Yes.
So speaking of the timing being right, it's now time for March Madness, the NCAA men's basketball tournament, also women's basketball tournament. Seems like the women's tournament is getting a lot less publicity this year because of the lack of Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, undefeated South Carolina, things like that. But
Yeah.
we'll talk a little next week. We'll talk a little bit more about the women's tournament. We will make a couple of brackets for the women's tournament, see how well those go. But I think we're going to mainly focus on the men's tournament, the 68 teams that have been selected. Uh, was there anything that stood out to you about the selection process this year? Was it the fact that the Big 12 only had 7 teams, whereas the SEC had 14 teams, almost twice as many as any other conference? I think the Big Ten
Yeah.
had 8. So it was, a very SEC heavy team. So even my alma mater, Arkansas, made it in when I thought they were surely going to be out. I thought, they wouldn't take more than 10 or so, 11 SEC teams.
Right.
They'd take 14 teams, even allowing Texas and some teams that were behind Arkansas in the standings to get into the tournament. So
Yeah.
Arkansas actually is a 10 seed. They're going to play the University of Kansas, Dr. Andrew Scaff's perhaps least favorite team in the first round. It's the 7 seeded KU Jayhawks. Are you happy that KU?
Perhaps. Well, I'm sorry. I think I've made it pretty clear they're my
Are you happy
least.
that KU is a 7 seed? You think they should have made the tournament, or would you have kept them out just out of spite?
Out of spite, I think they would have been great if they didn't make the tournament at all. That would have been just fantastic. But it's kind of it's unfortunate that Arkansas has to play Kansas in that first game. Then that's what I felt a little bad about. But did you find it odd that they're playing each other in the Western region, but the game is being played, I believe, in Providence, Rhode Island, Mike? What do you think? What do you think about the regional
Yeah,
sets, the
the
way they make
regional
this?
names, they have had this like little pod system for a while where the pods don't always go with the region. I guess
Yeah,
I don't know exactly what the advantages are. Maybe it's travel, but I don't think it really is because it's not like, if you're in the West, Arkansas and Kansas traveling out west, it's no farther to go out west really than it is to go to Providence, Rhode Island, which is about as I don't think Providence, Rhode Island has been considered west since about 1630 when the Pilgrims settled in the Puritans settled in Boston and then eventually moved a little farther west when Rhode Island was founded by dissenters and a slightly different variety of Calvinist theology, but um, it's yeah, it's a little strange. Um, is that yeah? So they're far yeah. Providence being out west is odd, but it's a
Well, I
um
mean, like the actual like Sweet 16 and Elite Eight games we played somewhere in the region, but for some
yeah
reason in the opening round of the tournament, regions don't actually mean anything at all.
yeah. I think
It's odd. It's
in
odd.
past years I've made brackets that involve distance to the game sites. I don't know if I'm going to have time to go through all that this year.
A lot of
I'm not as energetic
map
and enthusiastic
setting.
and um, as I have been in the past at making all these wacky brackets. I
Yeah.
might stick to brackets that I think will do well rather than just have random chance. But yeah, I don't, I guess probably it's a little, I don't know if what do you think? Is it closer from Fayetteville to Providence or from Lawrence to Providence? Lawrence is, I believe, slightly further west, but Fayetteville is farther south.
Right.
Um,
It's probably a little further for Arkansas because of the South, how much further south it is. Is what I would assume. But like
it,
flight timing wise, it's probably almost the same.
yeah,
Right.
it would, so it's for driving 1,516.6 miles is the 23-hour drive time from Fayetteville to Providence. Uh, Now let's look at Lawrence, Kansas. Lawrence, Kansas is 21, 26, 1434 miles. So it was
About
1560,
100 miles
that's
shorter.
1434. Yeah. So that's yeah, a little bit closer to Lawrence, Kansas. So for
Yeah.
the the fans, it might be more Kansas fans in attendance than Arkansas fans, a very slight amount. I don't know who the other teams are in the Providence little pool.
Well, actually, we have a connection to one of the other Providence teams, Mike, because that's where Purdue High Point is
Ooh,
playing
the Purdue
also,
Hunt.
which is
Purdue.
not in the Western region, but it is being played. I think that's in the Midwest region,
Hmm.
but that is also being played in Providence.
So yeah, then Providence, yeah, High Point being the university coached by former North Kansas City High School alumnus and classmate of
In
ours,
classmate, yes.
uh, one Alan Huss, and they've done very, very well. They're a 13 seed, right? To Purdue's 4. So are you predicting an upset versus 13? Yale is also a 13 seed in the tournament. So who of the 13 seeds, you putting Yale being one of my alma maters and High Point, which of those teams do you think is more likely to win? Yale against Texas A&M or High Point against Purdue?
Well, I have picked out my first impression bracket, and I actually picked them both, Mike.
Ooh.
Both. I did. I took Yale and High Point in the first round matchups. 13s have actually won some games the last few years, so it's not terribly surprising if they do win. I thought it was interesting though. I did look into High Point a bit because I didn't really know it existed before the
Mhm.
season. But did you know who the previous coach was
At High
of
Point?
High Point before Alan Huss took over?
I did not.
It's a quite a famous coach who's an alum of High Point apparently. It was Tubby Smith was there
Oh, Tubby
before.
Smith coached at High Point. Okay.
Yeah.
I
So he
remember
was
Tubby
there
Smith
just
as the
recently even.
coach of Kentucky, Minnesota a little bit. I think he won a national championship with Kentucky.
He
Uh,
did.
I'm looking at the betting odds. Yale is 6.5 point underdog to Texas A&M. High Point is a 7.5 point underdog to Purdue at this point.
Those aren't
Arkansas
crazy
is a
odds.
Arkansas is a 4.5 point underdog to Kansas. Um,
I think in my first impression bracket, I did take Arkansas as well, just for fun, just because I don't like, obviously, Kansas.
right now, it looks like
Whatever is embarrassing for Kansas, that's what I'm going to pick in my first impression brackets.
yeah,
Always.
it looks like Alabama. Right now, it looks like Alabama. I mean, Auburn over Alabama State at 31.5 is the largest spread right now.
Ah,
That's Duke doesn't. I think Duke has hosts a play-in game, so I'm not sure, and that might not be up yet. So
yeah.
that could change. But um, oh, the hypothetical college basketball odds. So Mount St. Mary's, if they win, Duke will be 33.5 point odds. If American wins, Duke is only a 30.5 point odd.
Nice.
And yes, okay. So that is yeah, so we have the brackets that we're gonna make for the tournament. We'll see how those go. When we will at some point start also making bets as to who do we think is going to win the region and win the national championship. So we'll add those bets. I don't think do we want to make bets as right now who's going to win the region, or should we leave that to?
We can. We didn't actually do that before the show though, so we don't we're not necessarily prepared to with
Should for
odds
should,
anyway.
should
So
we
do you want to maybe just throw out who you think's going to win, like, or which one seed do you think is most likely to fall? Maybe something like that.
Okay, let's do that. Let's do that. And one seed most likely to fall. Well, Duke do they have Cooper Flag?
Cooper Flagg's expected to play.
Okay. What about Iowa? I know Iowa State's number 3 seed, but they have injury as well. What is their
Yeah,
best
so in
player?
the Big 12 tournament, they had two players were out, which was too much to overcome. Their two of their top guard, their two starting guards were out, so they ended up, not making it out of the second round. But yeah, so they're not likely to advance deep into the tournament, I don't think. I think Gilbert's out for the tournament, but Lipsy's expected to play.
Okay. Right now, as we're speaking, North Carolina is winning their play-in game against San Diego State 40-19. So it looks like North Carolina, which was controversially added because the selection committee chairman was the athletic director of the University of North Carolina.
Yeah,
Added instead of in West Virginia was the team that most people thought would be in that was left out. They had similar resumes, but North Carolina looks
yeah,
like they're. It seems like always the last team that is let in, the controversial team usually wins their play. It seems like maybe it's just that they usually win uh, their
yeah,
game or their opening game. Sometimes maybe they don't. I don't know. Maybe uh, it's probably about 50-50 really, but it's just my confirmation bias, I guess. But
yeah. Yeah, but
going back.
usually the last team that doesn't make it is from like a major conference. Do you feel sympathy for these schools that don't make it then, or do you
Not
not?
especially. I think you do in the moments, I think. But like really they aren't what's they maybe they could get Sweet 16. Probably that's about the best they could do. And they could win a couple of
No.
games here, which is exciting, but like it's not like we're leaving a potential national championship caliber team out.
No.
So going back to the one seeds, it seems like Auburn has kind of backed its way into the tournament. They've lost, I
Yeah,
think, 2 or 3 games recently.
right.
Um, Sometimes that momentum means something. So I guess my guess would be maybe Auburn is the team that loses.
I think Houston struggled a bit down the stretch too, but they ended up winning the Big 12 tournament.
Auburn does have to play Louisville possibly in the second round.
Right.
And Louisville was a solid. Louisville, I think, was the one of like a top 10, or it was a really high ranking in some of the computer rankings, even though they're
Mm,
a seed and they were having a highly ranked team as well. So maybe that 1-8 game might be the most. I think um I think any of the 1-8-9 games, I think any those have become almost 50-50, it seems like at this point. So I could the
yeah.
second round matchups are tough to win, and
Well, and
sometimes
there are some particularly tough ones this year too. Like you mentioned, Auburn potentially gets Louisville. Florida could get UConn, the
yeah,
back-to-back defending champion UConn in the second round, and
Houston,
Houston is likely to get Gonzaga in their second round matchup.
yeah,
So
even
that, I mean
Duke,
that like we may not have any ones
yeah, and
besides maybe
Duke,
Duke
yeah.
advancing out of
Well, Duke plays
the
Baylor too. Baylor is a historic. In the last couple of years,
yeah.
Baylor has been within the in the national championship game, even so.
Didn't they
They've
win like 3 years ago, 4 years
Yeah, they
ago?
won. Yeah,
Yeah.
they've um
Or they just in it 3 or 4 years ago. They win. They won one, didn't they?
yeah, they won over Gonzaga.
Yeah, sounds right. Yeah.
Uh yeah, they won in
Yeah.
2021,
4 years ago.
4 years ago. Yeah, I remember I was in
Yeah.
law school at that point. I remember watching that game from my
Yeah, so
state
all
college.
ones might have, a difficult route out of just their initial weekend.
Yeah, this seems like a year that I don't know
So
if the
maybe they're
one.
all vulnerable.
Yeah, I'd say they're all vulnerable. I'm gonna say Auburn is the most vulnerable if I had to pick one. Um, I think Florida. I seem to like the way Florida's been playing. They won the SEC tournament. They've been fairly dominant lately. So
Mm.
I think maybe Florida might be the favorite for me if I had to pick at this point.
But they do have to get through UConn now, right?
You have to
So
get through UConn. Um,
they're going to at least get challenged then early on. So if they survive that, then maybe they see themselves all the way through the Final Four without too much extra threat anyway, because
well,
they've
they
already
have
faced
Michigan.
their probably biggest opponent
Yeah, they have um, St. John's
as the two.
as the
So they might
two.
meet them in the Elite Eight.
Texas Tech, maybe. My home state of Maryland is number 4 in that one. But yeah, or you could say maybe some like a preseason favorite like Kansas makes a run because they were supposed to be very good this year and they've disappointed, but that doesn't mean that any team can get hot. And
Yeah.
I think Arkansas could win a game or two, but I don't think Arkansas can make the big run like Kansas could if they got a chance.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, it's like as usual, it's an unpredictable field, but I think maybe this year might even be more unpredictable than most because there haven't been the real power. I think, especially maybe you could say Duke, but with Cooper Flag's possible injury, that makes it a little
Yeah.
iffy.
But they managed to win the tournament without Flag, which is it makes them look a little extra scary and maybe more
Yeah,
together actually as a team right now if they're able to win in the absence of their best player.
yeah. Duke is the favorite in the net rankings. So Duke in the computer rankings, Duke is number one. I think Auburn ended up being the number one overall seed, but Duke is the number
Yes.
uh, computer ranked team.
Okay.
And if Duke and Auburn ended up playing, they wouldn't play until the championship game.
Final. Yeah. So you've already filled out one bracket.
I filled out one bracket. I just did it according to the net basketball
So you
specifications.
ended up with Duke as the champion then.
Duke against Auburn. Yeah, it was all number one seeds made it. Uh,
So
I
my
was
my first impression bracket, I had Duke, St. John's in the final. Duke
ooh,
winning.
Duke winning over St. John's. I would like to see an interesting. I think I'm leaning. I don't know. I like Michigan State a lot as a team that could win the whole thing because I think Tom Izzo's a really good coach, and I think It's been a while since Michigan State's had a really good team. They've been making the tournament. I think they've made the tournament like 27 consecutive years under Tom Izzo, and
Yeah,
I think they could. I don't think the thing with Iowa State hurting and Auburn kind of limping in the finish. I think that might be the weakest of the four brackets. So I could see
yeah,
the number two Michigan State, the best team in the Big Ten this year,
yeah,
maybe taking that. Um, I still think of maybe it's Florida though, but I could see Michigan State winning there. I don't know. I don't know. So I'm kind of torn between Michigan State and Florida. So I will probably have brackets that have both of those teams winning one way.
yeah.
Um, I hope it's a Big 12 champion. So I would hope, I guess Houston is probably the best hope for the Big 12 unless Kansas makes a, remarkable kind of comeback, which would, I think, infuriate you more than anything. So if I did my anti scaff, which bracket would make scaff the maddest, I think definitely it would be um, Kansas winning the whole thing. Would would you be more upset if Iowa State made the Final Four and was defeated by Kansas in the Final Four, or if Iowa State lost in the first round?
Oh, losing to Kansas has to be one of the worst possible things to happen that way. I don't think
But
there's nothing worse
Iowa State would be in the Final Four maybe for the first time in
since like the 1930s or something,
a long time. Yeah,
something like that.
since
Yeah,
since Johnny Orr was a child, basically,
right.
and he's been dead for 20 years, probably Johnny Orr.
I think so. Somewhere in there. Yeah. Yes. He seemed very old when he was the coach, even, right?
Yes.
In like the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, late 80s, I guess.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Um,
He was probably born in the aughts, though, right? Is that
Johnny
what you guess?
Johnny Orr was born in 1927, died in
Okay.
2013, age 86. So when did Iowa State make the Final Four? They made the Final Four in 1944. So Johnny Orr would have been
17.
16, 17 years old. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The first Final Four since 1944, but they lose to Kansas or an ignominious first round loss, which would you would prefer. It seems like you might prefer the first round loss, which is surprising to me.
I've
I
lived
Final
through the
Four
first round
are
loss already, Mike. I've felt that disappointment before. It wouldn't be a new feeling. So I would.
I I'd take the Final Four, even though they lose to Kansas, especially if
Uh,
Kansas lost in the national championship. That would be bad, but
you don't have
that
to deal with
would
Kansas fans on a day-to-day basis, Mike. That's the problem.
So you ended up playing KU in that game, and that is the hype going in, and then the smug faces of KU fans, the smug,
For the
punchable faces
months and years
to deal
afterwards,
with.
no, I'll take the first round loss to not even have to deal with that other one. Yes.
So first round loss. So assuming then KU goes to the Final Four and wins the championship, you
Ugh.
you'd rather have a first round loss and a KU win uh, than a KU than having KU be a speed bump on Kansas's road to victory.
Yes. Yeah, I don't really have to think about that very much. Yes, Mike, that is the
You don't
answer.
feel like, well, at least we lost, we lost to we could be the second best team in the tournament. We lost to the champion. You
Done
don't
that
feel
before too. It's empty. That's an empty set,
good.
set of scenarios for the
That was back when Iowa State probably lost to Michigan State in the Elite Eight round, and they were probably the two best teams. For some reason, they were placed in the same bracket as one another,
right.
which
And
nobody
they had
thought
to
was a
play
good
like
idea.
basically like it was like a home game for Michigan State too, which made it, even that much more annoying for Iowa State fans.
Yeah, I don't. That was it seems like the dumbest of the 1-2 decisions that the NCAA has made in a long time because those everybody thought those teams were the top two teams in the country most of the season. And I think
Yeah.
that actually led to the revamping of the Big 12 tournament, I think to ending on Saturday rather than on Sunday, wasn't it? Because they felt like there were no spots, and so they just gave Iowa State the number two seed in Michigan State's bracket because that was what was left because they were the team. They were
Mm.
the conference that finished their conference tournament later than anyone else, or something like
Yeah, that
that.
sounds right. Yeah,
Um,
ridiculous.
so, but you okay? I so that
Yes,
that
I would, Mike. I'd rather take the first round loss than be
so
speed bump
then
to
now
Kansas's
I know how to make
city.
my painful scaff bracket even better. So
Yes.
I can't.
You did do this bracket last year and it did not do well, and that made me happy. So
The painful scaff would I would have Iowa State do very well, but not as well as Kansas in losing to Kansas in the national semifinals because that's when they would play.
yeah.
So uh would
Which bracket will rip out the heart of Andrew Scaff?
yes.
It was, I believe you called it like Andrew's nightmare or something last
Yeah.
year. Something like that.
So Mizzou and KU could match up in the uh Elite Eight or wait,
Yeah.
Sweet 16. Sweet 16. Uh you probably don't want to see Missouri do well either, do you?
I don't care as much about Missouri though. I don't.
Would you rather have Drake beat Missouri
That'd be great. That's
and
fine.
and
Yeah.
Iowa State lose? Would you rather have Drake be the team in Iowa that goes further than
I
Iowa
mean,
State?
that'd be like slightly annoying, but it would be surprising if Drake, as an 11 seed, went deep in the tournament. Yeah, I would be happy for them
Okay.
if they moved on.
So,
That's fine.
but most painful would be Iowa State making its first Final Four since World War II, and then
And then
losing to
losing
Kansas.
to Kansas in that scenario. Yeah, that's
Would a
terrible.
blowout loss to Kansas be worse, or a heartbreaking loss to Kansas be worse?
They'd be equally terrible. It doesn't matter.
So if
Anything that
Kansas,
allows a Kansas fan to gloat in my general vicinity is a disaster, Mike, in
well,
any
if it
way.
was if it was a blowout loss, Kansas fans could start gloating early on in the game while they're sitting next to you. It's like, if Kansas takes a 30-point halftime lead, they could
Yes.
strut through the second half and just. Uh, but if it was at least a close game with a tense
Yes.
finish, they wouldn't be able to brag as much. So,
You're also overestimating the intelligence of a Kansas fan in general, so they're going to gloat regardless if it earned or not earned or how earned it was. It doesn't matter. They're going to do it anyway.
okay.
They're the worst, Mike. The worst fan base I've come across is the KU fan.
Well, I don't live in Kansas City right now, so I'm just I just delight in your suffering with KU fans. I of course
That this year
thought
was
briefly
fantastic, though. I will say that
they
this was
didn't
a great
have
year. They didn't get all the calls like they normally do. It was great to see, Kansas not being like so heavily favored all the time in every scenario, the thumb on the scale by the conference, seemingly every season, every game. It was
yeah.
great. Great year.
Well,
Much better year.
KU is one of the places where I worked briefly,
Yeah.
so it's one of so I could so I I don't mind the university. When I was a kid, I liked Missouri much more than Kansas, but now I like the University of Kansas more than I like the University of Missouri. Partly because I think Missouri shouldn't have gone to the SEC. I didn't like their bolting and leaving the Big 12, but
Yeah.
so I don't really care much about Missouri anymore. I don't follow them as much.
Right.
I think Missouri as the state is in severe decline uh, because of uh, maybe politics and things like that. But
Yeah.
it's a weird. I think I like being from Missouri rather than being from Kansas, but I still um, I don't follow Mizzou any longer since the SEC. I'm still an Arkansas fan, so I would like to see Arkansas beat Kansas, but I think but for my Scaff's nightmare scenario, I would gladly trade an Arkansas loss to Kansas because I don't think that would be a big deal. Whatever, Arkansas lost to Kansas, who cares? Its
No.
first game, Arkansas should be happy to be in the tournament. But if they can march and cause trouble for Andrew Scaff in his day-to-day life, his work life, you still work with a lot of KU grads and uh,
They're around anyway, so you can't go very far. you
But you're
know,
working at
away.
K-State Olathe.
Right. So it's a lot of sort of KU people that are in Kansas City that have taken the university jobs or are still like around the
Mhm.
city at least anyway. So there are KU people around.
Is there a rival between K-State Olathe and KU Edwardsville?
Not that I'm aware of. I think there probably are on paper between the two schools probably fighting for tuition money dollars from people, but K-State Olathe doesn't. I mean, it's not really like it doesn't really have like students there for the most part. There are some laboratories there that are there, but there's just like a few people that work there for that are like would be considered students anyway.
Hmm. KU
It's
Edwardsville
more like
has a
there are some like facilities in that location, but it's not really like a university outpost like KU Edwards is.
Edwards. I was thinking Edwardsville. I don't know why I said Edwardsville. Edwardsville. I think I was thinking of Southern Illinois, Edwardsville in St. Louis.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
SIU Edwardsville. I was thinking instead of
Yeah.
the KU Edwards campus because it's not in a town.
Yeah,
It's not in its own city. It's in Overland Park. It's a little bit
right,
south of Johnson County Community College. JCC is
right.
a lot bigger than KU Edwards was, at least when I was there. I don't know if KU Edwards has expanded or not, but
I
um,
think it's about the same size,
I
but
think KU
they
was
have actual
trying.
classes there. There are students that
Yeah,
go there to take classes. But that's not what K State Olathe is. It's yeah,
I think KU was trying to get a lot of that Johnson County Community College money because a lot of students took classes at JCCC because it was cheaper and it was closer to home, and you can still, and they transferred readily to KU and
yeah,
a lot of the same programs. But I think probably so we can get some of this money at
yeah.
Edwards, so we'll have it.
And you can live and go to school in Kansas City as opposed to like commuting to Lawrence, which is not fun to do on a day-to-day basis if you don't have to.
Mhm.
Which some people do though. Like they'll commute from different parts of Kansas City out to Lawrence, but
Yeah, I
that's a
yeah.
drive. You got to do it every day. So
Yeah, when I taught there, I had to do that, but I
yeah,
also lived in Missouri side and went all the way to Johnson JCCC. You're going all the way down to Olathe now from the Missouri side, so
all the way,
that's a long commute yourself. So,
yeah, yeah.
uh,
It's not fun.
well, what will be fun is the NCAA basketball tournament this year. We'll see what happens. We'll have our brackets to dissect coming next week, and we can see lick our wounds or strut our stuff.
Yeah,
That
see which methodology ends up coming out on top again.
Yeah, whether it's our own expertise or just relying on a system developed from the outside or looking at the experts' expertise,
Yes.
seeing which one of those will reign supreme this coming. Yeah, I feel like this could be a crazy year, but this could also just be a chalk year too. I don't know. It's
There have been a lot of upsets the last several years. I mean, there've been it's not we haven't seen too many like chalky brackets. We've seen chalky sort of final fours, but not
yeah,
there's always upsets
always
along the
upsets.
way.
Yes, just so War Trek Power Hour is a number one seed in the minds of its viewers and listeners. So we hope that we are not upset. Next week we will definitely have another episode next week coming to you live from the various studios of the War Trek Power Hour from Olathe, Kansas, and Frostburg, Maryland, or perhaps from Kansas City, Missouri, and Frostburg. Or are you technically in Gladstone when you broadcast on the Missouri side?
It's Kansas City.
Kansas City North.
Yeah, Kansas
Uh,
City, comma North. I think
yeah.
right now I'm actually technically in Lenexa.
Ooh, Alexa. Oh, you're not at,
Yes,
you're at the office space rather than at
I'm
KU.
not in K State Olathe now. Right now,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's more
Flex
where
Pod,
that's more where
Lenexa.
the bottling facility is. K-State Olathe, is that
Right.
for
Yeah.
ear air pharmaceuticals? How do you say it?
There. Yeah.
Air air
Yep.
pharmaceuticals,
Yep. Yep.
which whose award-winning Well 360 drink is going to sweep the nation one of these
Yes.
days.
One of these days. Yes.
Well, I swear,
No.
I've been drinking it for over maybe 2 years at this point by now.
Yeah, at least a year, I think now. So
Yeah, and I haven't died yet, so I'm feel like
I'm on it.
it's
I'm on it for 4 years now, I think. So
we're doing
yeah,
great.
we need to
Uh,
make it a sponsor of
Warrior Power,
Orange
which
Track
has
Power.
also been around now for going on for 4+ years. Uh, is this our
Yeah,
fifth?
this is season 5.
5, yeah. So this is our fifth season. So we're in our fifth year, and we are very happy that you are our listener or viewer, dear listener, viewer, whoever's out there right now, with us on their radio or headphones or other listening device. So maybe we should sign off since I've already kind of veered into sign off territory. Is there anything else we should add this week? We didn't have time to go into our TV preview, partly because I was neglectful of my TV watching responsibilities this week because I was trying to keep people out of jail and I think mostly so far successful. I got a few
Priorities, Mike. Come on.
see what happens tomorrow. But I'll try to keep fighting the good fight. And I know you have been keeping you've been keeping people out of jail as well in your own way, Dr. Scaff, by not committing any crimes that we know
Exactly. That we know
of. Be careful what you say on this program may incriminate you, and I'm sure the local law enforcement is paying very close attention to what we say, especially in this era of the surveillance state. You might have to really watch what you say here on the One Track Power Hour.
of. Yes.
But we'll never be silenced, though, Dr. Scaffar. We'll still have our hard-hitting, hair-splitting analysis that holds no punches, pulls no punches, right?
Pulls, no punches. There you go.
Pulls, not holds. No holds will be barred,
There we
but
go.
no punches. I think that's
You're crossing your
mixing,
metaphors
mixing
here.
my
Your
metaphors.
boxing and
Wrestling,
yes,
of course.
boxing and pro wrestling
Yeah.
potentially.
No
Yes.
holds barred. Yes. Um, anyway, uh, speaking of, we are the bards of Winter Power Hour.
Oh, was that a homophone?
Homonym, maybe? I don't know. Um, anyway, let's leave this silly place and sign off here at the Winter Power Hour. As always, I am Dr. Michael Werman. He is Dr. Andrew Scaff. We are the One Track Power Hour. Please like and or subscribe to our YouTube channel or our podcast, which is available on many different podcast delivery platforms. We thank you very much for your listenership. We also wish to encourage you this weekend as you make your bets, your March Madness picks, your bracket picks. We wish you the best of luck in your bets as long as your interests do not conflict with ours. Although we're making so many different brackets that by definition they will conflict. So we're really whatever you do is fine with us this week. We
No,
don't really have any real interests, I think, this week. Um,
I think that's it. There.
yeah, so you'll be fine. So don't tremble when you're making your picks and thinking, oh, is it going to conflict with Andrew and Mike's and are they going to get mad at us? Somehow they'll know what their viewers are doing because of their omniscience and omnipresence. But no, we will refrain from using our omnipotence in it's like I got all three of them in there in against our enemies this week. So you are all or our friend I guess against our friends, our viewers this week. So you're all safe from the potential wrath of especially Dr. Scaff because he gets pretty upset if you go against his betting interests.
Although it might have made people money last year in
He's a
my
very
NFL teams,
he's a very petty man. Yes.
obviously.
He holds grudges for a long time, especially see the University of Kansas, his longtime nemesis that he can never forgive.
I have said that, if they lost every single game for 25 straight years, it still wouldn't be enough, Mike. That's how bad it is.
Wow. Yeah. Well, on that note, we apologize to any KU fans that might be listening in the audience. Uh, know
We
that
do not. We do not apologize.
I will apologize on behalf of Andrew. He's not have to,
No,
he does not
do
have to
not do that
accept
either.
apology. Uh, no. I'll apologize for my half of the warning track power
Yeah,
hour.
the line is like,
The
yeah, well,
line,
maybe it's on this side if it's flipped from the anime.
yeah,
Yes, wherever
yeah,
the line is, it divides our boxes from each other.
yeah. It'll be right here. I
Yeah.
think. I think it's flipped when we record, but then and if you're a listener to this show, you have no idea what's going on. But when you see us on YouTube, we have two. We each have a half of the screen, and there's
Yes.
a line between us, and there are two black sort of letter. It's a letterbox kind of format with uh, graphics sometimes above and below our images. So if you want to take a chance and look at the YouTube channel, now we've described it in luscious, beautiful detail. So on that note. Um, we'll really sign off this time. We won't go through the whole spiel again, but we will wish you a very good day.